we have a question in the chat from Roost. So yeah, the BABOK study group will take place online partially. So the kickoff session will be an in-person session in a physical location. This is also where we will be able to hand out the BABOKs themselves. That's the occasion to get to know the other participants, and also the very last session in which the teams are going to do their presentations, their final presentations, will also be a physical event. All the others will be online.
I would like to introduce myself. I'm Stefan Boswee. I'm ambassador of the Brussels chapter, co-founder of the Brussels chapter, and I've been president for 10 years until Philip took it over finally. And then I have next to me the co-facilitator of the BABOK study group for many years, which is Robin. Robin, go ahead.
Voilà, Stefan already divulged my name, so yeah, that's me. Working as a business analyst for more than 50 years, I think, in several large organizations, mainly banking and insurance, in Belgium, France, the Netherlands, also a bit Germany. Used to work in international context. I've always been fascinated by business analysis. It's brought me a lot of fun, gave me a lot of knowledge. It got me acquainted with a lot of people over the whole of Europe. And after a couple of years, I became a bit passionate by methodologies, started studying more and more. Yeah, and then came in touch with the Brussels chapter, IIBA Brussels Chapter, and yeah, always worked as a volunteer there. Now I think for 4 or 5 years, I don't know. I'm responsible for professional development in there, and yeah, Stefan said, the co-founder of the BABOK Study Group. It's a bit of a hobby of mine, basically, the IIBA, to put it like that. I'm one of those rare geeks together with Stefan. And well, for now, the 5th edition, I think, or the 6th, I forgot. We're going to host the BABOK Study Group. For us, it's most enjoyable that we can open up the eyes of the world, of the new people, into the fantastic work, the fantastic body of knowledge that is the BABOK and the IIBA, and see people grow from their current vision of business analysis, either being juniors, entry levels, or even senior analysts with a lot of experience. See grow their understanding and the added value that the BABOK can deliver. And what always surprises us is the inventivity, of the people who actually finish the study group, all the sessions, in demonstrating how the big lines of the BABOK work and how an initiative end-to-end from idea, concept, problem, to even way after the aftercare and the operational follow-up, how business analysis can deliver added value. And this is something for Stefan and myself that's particularly interesting, because in Belgium we do have an image problem as business analysts, that we were often seen as sort of an operational role, while experienced analysts have no issue at all in playing a very important value-added role on tactical and even on strategic levels. And by each and every year doing the BABOK study group, we hope to make the people more and more enthusiastic about business analysis and showing them the wide range of possibilities. In short, voilà.
You were taking too long, Robin. Okay, so I'm going to give a very brief introduction on the BABOK, because those who want to participate, we will ask to watch another video on our YouTube channel, the one that we made a year ago, the first 43 minutes of that video, which is an introduction on the BABOK and how to read it. I'm going to show a few slides of that presentation, but in a very short thing. But if you want to participate, you have to look at that video for the first 43 or 44 minutes. Otherwise, you will be in difficulties the first session that we will have our BABOK study group, which will be on January 16th. Okay, I'm going to share my screen. So the BABOK, I'm going to, BABOK. So the BABOK is an interesting book. It's a reference guide around business analysis. And to be honest, it's not easy literature, not easy to digest. So it's a reference manual. It's not a methodology. It's a reference manual. And what kind of information do you have in there? So you have the core content of the BABOK is the business analyst tasks organized into knowledge areas. I'll go briefly through them. And you also have introduction, key concepts, underlying competencies, techniques, perspectives. Those are things that you also have. But the BABOK study group is about this. In the presentation that you have to look at if you want to participate to this BABOK study group, I will do a lot of explanation on the first two chapters, the key concepts and so. But it's about the 6 knowledge areas and their tasks. The knowledge areas. The knowledge areas, it's 6 chapters where these are the knowledge areas. So a knowledge area is a collection of a number of tasks. And it's about those 30 tasks that we're going to do the BABOK study group. And they are collected in a knowledge area, 4 to 6 tasks in one knowledge area. Why? Because there's some logical unity in there, except for this one, because in fact, those are 2 mini knowledge areas. What you also see is that there are a number of arrows. It goes in all different directions. And if you want to see the real one, this is something that these are all the relationships between all the knowledge areas. So that's impressive. Each task, inputs, outputs, and so on. But the internal 3 are those where that's the core knowledge areas. And the 3 around there are supporting. So here it happens the analysis. Here you learn how to elicitate, how to collaborate. Here do you prepare business analysis stuff, how you plan it, how you look at the stakeholders. And this is how you're going to prioritize requirements, look at dependencies. But the analysis and the evaluation, it happens here. This is the core, and that's the reason they're in the internal of the internal circle. Those are a number of those knowledge areas. There are also underlying competencies. Nice to know, all in the presentation, perspectives. But the most important is about the tasks. The task, piece of work. I'm not going to go through those, all of them, but a task is something you can imagine what it is, a task. Also, BABOK, no process, no order in which task, only inputs and outputs from one task can be input for another one or for several other tasks. That's the most important thing I wanted to share, is that we're going to BABOK study group around these knowledge areas and the tasks in there. That's the only thing I wanted to share before I'm going to share what we expect from the participants. Any questions or comments on that? I know I really went into a high speed, but the presentation itself takes about 45 minutes and we only have an hour. And that was not the purpose. The purpose is how we see the BABOK study group, how we intend to go through that BABOK study group. Any questions on the things that I just asked? I can't see you, so you can unmute yourself and ask a question. Don't put it in the chat because I can't read the chat at this moment.
All good from my side.
No questions for me.
Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing for a little second. who already, besides Robin and Mito, knew about the structure of the BABOK? Already heard about
just a bit. I'm following some YouTube videos about from BA Hut.
Okay, cool. Anastasia, did you know already a bit about because you did you look it up already? You looked already up once in a while, eh? Anastasia?
Sorry, I missed the question. I guess.
No, Anastasia. I
Oh,
asked.
Anastasia. Okay, sorry.
No,
Yeah.
no, I had a problem with my audio.
Oh, okay.
I have the book, so I walked through the chapters. So
Okay, so the structure is already familiar to us.
yeah, yes.
Perfect. Then we can continue to the next presentation. So the BABOK Study Group, organized by the IIBA Brussels chapters. This will be our 6th edition. And Robin, were you also facilitating the very first one? I can't remember. The one.
Yeah.
Where is
Yes,
it?
yes.
Okay. So
Mhm.
Robin and me are doing this already for the 6th year in a row. As facilitators, only in the first year there was another person, and Mark Willems.
Mark was still there.
Afterwards, we have another one, Christophe, who participated, but not as a facilitator, more as a supportive facilitator. But anyway, the approach that we use has already been copied by the Brazilian chapter and the the Geneva chapter. And well, the Polish chapter is interested, so maybe they want to copy it too. But Miso, tell us if you will copy it, okay? Keep us informed. Huh?
Definitely.
Okay. Okay. So, your mission, should you choose to accept, can be found on the following slides. And this message will not self-destruct. In the first session, so there will be 8 sessions, and I will tell a bit later when they will have take part. Decide all together. So we will have split up in teams, but we are going to decide all together on one imaginary case, which will be used throughout the following 7 sessions. On which the participants will demonstrate their understanding of the different knowledge areas. We want to put 2 constraints on the imaginary case. We're going to do that together. We're going to do some gamification probably to get to that case. But there are 2 constraints. It needs to be a case that is sustainable, because the last year IIBA Brussels Chapter has done quite a few things around sustainability. So we would like that it's sustainable. Sustainable can be in 2 directions or in both. Can be climate, planet, and so on, or it could be inclusive, everyone, equality, no inequalities, and so on. Everyone has to be involved. Yeah? So hopefully it's a case that triggers both of them. Okay. Then why an imaginary case? Just not to favor anyone. So imagine that one of the participants comes up with a real case and you take that. Well, that would favor that one person. And for example, you could also have non-disclosure issues that the case that this one person brings has some NDAs or other stuff present. And also, it also invites you to put yourself in the shoes and the position of the business stakeholders, which can also be interesting in your evolution, also as a business analyst. Not only for the BABOK study group, but also as a business analyst. It's sometimes fun. And also, if it's a real case and you have to ask real stakeholders something and they delay, then the timing will become a problem, because there's a strict timing on the whole BABOK study group, which I will show afterwards. If you have a question, please interrupt me by putting up your mic and tell me. I can't read the chat. Set up your team. So we're going to do some gamification like last year to set up a team. So that is a mixture with senior, junior, media, and some other things. I think we're going to use the same approach of last year. I thought that was a good one. So each team will decide on a team name. On the first session, we're still about the first session, exchange emails and phone numbers, and set up the first team meeting per team, because there's always a very short time frame. In fact, between all the sessions, there's always 3 weeks, except for before requirements analysis and design definition, because that's one with 6 tasks. We give you 4 weeks. And the closure, because that's a helicopter, you also get 4 weeks. But the rest is always 3 weeks in between sessions. So if you want to prepare something for the next session, you have to be very fast and use every week a synchronization moment. Otherwise, you might get into trouble. See how you collaborate. We provide a Slack platform if you want to, but you can also WhatsApp or maybe Teams or whatever, but make sure that every participant of your team, every team member can use that platform. So that's something that will happen in the first session. In the following sessions, there will be six sessions, one per knowledge area, and a last session with a summary, a helicopter view, and of course also a graduation ceremony. So that's the reason you need to be in person. And the first session, you need to be in person to do this gamification and so on. So, but all the other ones are in virtual, online. So you got 6 sessions, one per knowledge area, and a last session. So for those,
sorry to interrupt. The time frame for these sessions, is it in the evening and what hours or?
So it will always, so the in-person, well, it always starts at 7. Also the in-person. So the 16th you have the in-person, and the 25th of June also in person. Place to be decided, sorry. It's always at 7, and the in-person also starts at 7, but you're welcome to enter at 6:30, and we will provide sandwiches for the participants for the first and the last session. And of course, the last session, also some networking drink afterwards. So it's always at 7. And we hope to finish at 9:30, between 9 and 9:30. That's always the case. Except for the last session, the networking drink can take a little bit longer than 9:30.
But that's not the worst part.
But that's the part that's a networking drink.
Indeed.
Okay, good. So the knowledge area, per knowledge area, per task with regards to the case, describe the inputs and outputs. So each task has one or more inputs and one or more outputs. And for applying a task, you have to use techniques. So in the BABOK, you have 50 techniques. BABOK version 3 is already from April 2015. So meanwhile, there are new techniques. So you don't have to limit yourself to the techniques that are mentioned in the BABOK for those and those tasks. And also which stakeholders were involved. But which is very important is why you use certain technique for that task, that given task. So you have to apply the tasks onto your case by means of 1 or 2 or more techniques. What are the inputs? Short description. So my input was a class model for that and that and that. That was an existing class model that we got from somewhere else, and that was the input. Or the input was a documentation of a software tool. But remember, the case cannot be an IT project. Cannot be an IT case. You might have IT involved, but the case on itself needs to be a business case. But also, you don't have to be exhaustive. You do have to do every task one by one, but you don't have to show your techniques exhaustive, but only give a little example, high level, that you understood the technique and that you understood why you are using that. And even more, we have been surprised many times by participants that they use techniques that were in the BABOK, but not in the list of possible techniques for that given task. And yet they were very well chosen. So we have been impressed. So it's up to you to not to impress us, but if you can, please. We love to be impressed. And each year again, so even after 5 years, we have been after 4 years, the fifth, we have been impressed more than once. So we learn, Robin and I, we learn a lot from what you provide. But not exhaustive. You have to be brief, you have to, and that's what we will explain in the first session on January 16th. You will have that much time for your presentation in the knowledge areas. Okay. And the summary helicopter view is to demonstrate your understanding of the global view of the knowledge areas upon your task and the relationships between the tasks. So, which you have seen in the other drawing, there are many relationships, but we want to see the most important ones between the tasks that you applied, how they were tied together. So it's a helicopter view. We had last year someone doing in a format, a storytelling format, which was very impressive. We hope to manage to get them together to have a video so that you could have an example. But for the time being, it's not the case. But that's for June. So you got plenty of time of that. And also not exhaustive because that presentation time is also limited. Some ideas of caution. So inputs of tasks are often outputs of other tasks. Could be from the same knowledge area or other knowledge areas, or are sometimes not outputs of other tasks. That can be a challenge. For example, you are in a knowledge area and you got an input that is an output of a certain task of a knowledge area that we haven't seen. Remember, there's not an ideal sequence. So that means you have to create your own output, an imaginary, and make it up, because there's no time that you do quick the other task. No, you have to make up your own input. You often have to do that. But for example, if as a team, you're preparing one knowledge area and you have input from another task in the same knowledge area, and each person is preparing one task, you have to agree on the inputs that are outputs of the other ones. So it's a challenge. We will come back to that on January 16th. So that can be a challenge for your synchronization with the team. So this drawing you also already seen. So it's a big spaghetti. I'm trying to make a version which is easier to look at. I hope to have it finished by January 16th, and that it will replace this drawing. So that's my sincerest hope.
Big challenge.
Big challenge. I'm working on it. It's evolving. It's evolving.
It's not easy. I tried it as well in sort of a metro line style map, but it's not easy at all to keep it keep it clear.
I'm almost finished, but I'm going to show it. I'm not going to show the intermediate version.
Not even to me?
I don't have it on this laptop. It's on. I'm doing that during lunchtime at the office. But the thing is, here you don't see very well the relationship between. You don't see a difference between tasks and outputs and inputs, and it's you can't see the difference. And in my example, you see a better difference, and you see the relations between the tasks in between one knowledge area. You see it much better than here. It's too much spaghetti. Anyway, so time it reaches is very short, 3 3 weeks and 2 times 4 weeks. So plan it wisely and don't be too exhaustive. You have to demonstrate your understanding of the BABOK, none of the techniques. So the BABOK is very, doesn't say much on techniques. So if you go to the chapter with the techniques, you will see that the explanation is very brief and no examples or very little. So the BABOK is not about the techniques, it's about the tasks. So that's the difference between, for example, IRIB or other organizations which are more focused on techniques. The BABOK is not focused on techniques. And that's the end of the presentation. So before I stop sharing, any of you have already have questions on the presentation? Otherwise, I'll stop sharing. And that's that's the reason I asked this question.
I don't see a question in the chat either, so everything appears to be, as always, quite clear. Stefan.
Okay, okay. So that's the approach. Your feedback. What's your impression? I'm first going to ask the participants before I go into Miso. So Anastasia, no, Rose. Rose is your last name, but it's
Marijke.
Marijke.
It looks like a lot of work, but definitely interesting.
Yeah, and that's true. And for the video, I'll repeat, you will have to spend a lot of time. So the sessions are 8 sessions of 2 hours and a half, except for the last, which is a bit longer. Huh? and in between, you have to prepare your next session. That's why we ask people to be brief in the presentation, and that they spend more time to synchronize amongst each other to understand very well what's going on. And you also have to dig in yourself, individual, into the into each knowledge area, because we only give a brief overview. But the brief overview in the format of storytelling, how do they tasks relate to each other, why? We make you think about the tasks so that it's easier to understand so if you go read through the different tasks, you can understand them much better. So Marijke, other feedback, or can we go to Anastasia?
I'm just wondering, does the preparation you put into it, does it really help with like doing the examinations of the BABOK?
Well,
Yes.
that's a good question, and that's a very good question. Yes, I've done my CBAP exam on the version 2, and the whole reason why we do this approach comes from 2 experiences from me. But let's go first to my CBAP exam. 1 week before I took my first exam, because I failed my first exam, I found a book from Barbara Karkenort, which was a CBAP CCBA exam preparation book. And in fact, it was a book that helped you to understand the BABOK. And that made me think like, wow, why isn't the BABOK written in this way? And why is it that complex? I still don't have an answer to that. And even Barbara Karkenort in the introduction of the book says like, I would have done it differently. Although she participated also to BABOK 3 and BABOK 2, she has been part of the team, but there's a consensus about everyone who participates in the creation of BABOK. So the BABOK is because that was a consensus, and that's the consensus of everyone participating. So she said, I tried to explain different. So she explained the relationship between the tasks within a knowledge area and so on and so on. And that's how we bring it here. That's the storytelling around the BABOK. But how better to prepare for something if you don't understand it and learn it by heart, or when you understand it? And the BABOK is very theoretical, and we want to bring the practice, a case, onto that theory. so that you understand the theory, why it is in there. So because you don't understand why this is an output of that one, which is an input of that, you don't understand. With the storytelling, you'll start to understand, but you will definitely understand it if you apply it to a case. Maybe not the first preparation, which will be planning and monitoring. It might be tricky, but you'll start. So from the second and the third, you start to play around with those tasks and in those knowledge areas. But it's a good question. And my second experience is related to that. I was into the secondary schools from my 12 to my 18 years. And it only had 3 years, which the first 3 years was very general. And then I had to choose between, in that school, economics or math. And they didn't have any other direction. So at the end of the third year, I was like, what the hell am I going to do? I chose math because my economics was really, it sucked. I really hated it. And the first lesson of the math teacher in the 4th grade every year, he says like, the people who's done math had the first 3 years in this school, because there were also people from other schools that joined us. I have understood that they don't always understand mathematics. So that's the reason I will repeat all the mathematics of the first 3 years. Like, huh? But don't worry, I only probably spent two weeks about that. I was like, what? In 2 weeks, he repeated the stuff from mathematics of 3 years, and we got it. And then he did a test after that, and it was, for me, so much easier than in the 3 previous years. So it's the way, if you understand mathematics or you understand a BABOK, it's much easier to prepare for an exam. And so get back to my CBAP exam. So the book, I only got 1 week before my first exam. I failed with the first exam because the English was too complicated. And yeah, I made some complaints. I took my second exam a few months later. The English was better, but the book was now already months in my possession. And it was like, there's some logic in there. I understood the BABOK when I did my exam, which is very important. Certainly for the CCBA and CBAP exam, you have to understand the BABOK. Because it's case-based or scenario-based. CCBA is case-based and CBAP is now scenario-based. Whereas when I did my exam, it was case-based and scenario-based, and you had to understand the BABOK. So you could only finish well if you understood the BABOK thoroughly, if you had a lot of experience, and you could tie those two together. That's the only way. And still, you can only pass for CCBA and CBAP if you can tie those two together. Other question. Now I'm going to Anastasia, because Anastasia, your feedback on this approach.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear to me what I would like to ask. You spoke about now about the complexity of the book, and that there will be some explanations provided along the way about the knowledge areas and the relationships between them, how the tasks relate to each other, and how do these explanation moments are incorporated in the overall context in the sessions that we have to do in the groups, and how it will be organized.
I'm going to share.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There you go. These are the sessions. So on the first, it's the kickoff. Explain the expectation. We go through again this presentation that I showed, but we go a bit more in depth. Setting up the teams in the case, and then we introduce the very first knowledge area, which will be business plan, analysis, planning, marketing. We don't follow the sequence of all the knowledge like in the BABOK. We have our own sequence, and that's because the majority outputs of planning and monitoring are used in everywhere. It's everywhere. So it has to do with the outputs that are inputs of others. It's not ideal because sometimes you will have an input that we haven't seen yet, but that's the most optimal that we took. So for business plan, analysis, planning, monitoring, you do a stakeholder. Who are the stakeholders? You do some preparation. Which kind of way are we going to store requirements, and so on and so on. And then you're going to present the next session how you apply the tasks of the knowledge area business analyst planning and monitoring onto your case. And then we'll do an introduction on knowledge area elicitation and collaboration, and so on, and so on, and so on, and so on. And the last session, which will be the solution evaluation, we're going to repeat expectations on the final session and do some Q&A. Yeah, here there's one bullet point missing, is because we are going to ask every participant to watch the video.
I'll share the link.
This video, intro to the BABOK guide, until minute 43, I think. Yeah, until minute 43. That's what we're going to. No, I didn't say you had to. You could start. I don't know why it started. Anyway, that's what we're going to ask. And at this session, we're also going to ask, are there any questions about that video? There's already quite a few Q&As in that video, but if there are additional questions, they can always ask. Voila, that's a bit the approach. Anastasia, other questions or other remarks?
Not for now, no.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
So here it will
sorry, I have another question. The time needed for the group work, can you give an estimation?
The time needed.
That depends for doing the group work between sessions. That depends on the maturity and the collaboration between the groups.
Yeah.
But I think you can easily say at least 3 hours in between sessions.
Oh, okay.
And I say at least.
Yeah.
But it depends. It's the power in our approach is mainly in the fact that by collaborating with others who you may or may not know, you come together on a conclusion in order to meet the objective of each session. Let's call it like that. And it's that exchange that is quite valuable.
Yeah.
And also when you're presenting the session in the session itself, the case progress, there it is Stefan and I who will be asked. I will also invite, of course, the other participants to ask questions, but we also will ask questions on saying, why did you do this? Why not it? That? Did you take into account that? What if? So it's quite open in terms of approach. So this is also why we say the time spent in between sessions, yes, it's to work on the case presentation, but don't waste the time on going into full details on using a specific technique for the case. No, okay. Use it for a little part so we can follow the big red lines, the major lines of it, but don't go all exhaustive on writing the different requirements, the different designs and whatever you want. That's not the objective.
Also, you could agree, for example, that one person does task 1, the other one task 3. So the one working on task 1 doesn't need to know all the details of the other tasks, maybe the high level, which you can also read in the business analyst standard, which is does a very good summary, the business analyst standard. I will show you it in a second. But you have to agree on the outputs and the inputs. So every output and input that you have in your task, you have to understand very well. And if what your output is input of the other one, you have to agree amongst each other. And you have to understand then the output input very well. But you don't have to know all the details of the contents of the other tasks. But I do think I have the... nope, I don't have it open yet. But it's somewhere in my recent
you have it?
Business analyst standard. There you go. And I'm going to open the miniatures. So there you go. So it's if for example you go to the knowledge area, which is on page 17. Oh, I have this 17. Okay. 17. Here I have the knowledge areas, and there you see, for example, all the tasks in one go. But then you have one knowledge area, plan business analysis approach. Is it? No, business analysis planning and monitoring. And it gives you an overview of the different tasks, the inputs and the outputs. And then you can go to each task in detail, but it's high level. If you compare to, for example, plan business analysis approach, and you go and have a look how many pages it is in the BABOK, it's about 12 or 13 pages. Here, there's a big, nice summary here, which is sufficient for the team members to understand. But the person that is going to do task, plan business analysis approach, has to go through into the BABOK to go into do more detail, to understand which techniques and so on to use. Yeah. Other questions? Remarks? And then
maybe one question: how will the groups be composed? Is it
gamification? We are going to do gamification. We're going to do some games like who calls himself junior, medium, senior, and then who is consultant, whatever. Robin is doing that. So Robin, you can maybe explain, but we don't want to give too much up front.
How shall we put it? I don't want to give a typical Belgian political reaction, but yeah, indeed, as Stefan said, indeed, the first session, voilà, this is the session where we're getting to know one another and where all the participants get to know one another by means of some, let's say, games we shall play in order to get to know you. And based on the inputs or the output we get from those games, we will make sure that there's a well-balanced team with a mix of a lot of experience, little experience, groups of companies, not groups of companies. Basically, we want to construct the groups in such a way that within the groups, people can learn from one another. Just to give you an example, let's say if we have 20 participants, and from those 20 participants, we can 10 persons consider themselves junior and 10 persons consider themselves senior. Putting all the seniors together, okay, that could be quite interesting, but what about the juniors? So we want to create a decent mix where the group composition allows people to learn from the experience of one another. I hope that was not too far, Stefan.
Yeah, fully agree. Robin, can you ask Anne to put those dates also on?
You didn't do it yet?
Nope.
I'll ask it again.
Yeah, because if people want to register, they probably would like to know the dates and the venue of the 16th. We have to speed up our search.
Yeah.
I have to get back to Christoph because he was going to check with him if it was
already. I just asked the question already. Voilà.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions, Anastasia and remarks also, Marijke, and then after that I'm going to ask Mizo his opinion, but first the ladies. Ladies first. Always ladies first.
Exactly.
At the moment, no further questions from my side.
Okay. And
You.
you can always get in touch with us afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Mizu, now you had the full introduction, but it's very close because you saw the video of last.
Yes.
So only we have changed the way the case was built, and that was feedback of last year. We had each team decide their own case, and which was also interesting, which we have done for 5 years. But the feedback was like, why don't you do it on one case so that you can compare, like one team did this, the other team did that, and that we didn't think about it before. Like, yeah, why not? So I said, like, this is the first time someone gives you this suggestion.
That sounds interesting, you know. But from my point of view, first of all, the approach and the preparation is just fantastic, guys. All the best of luck. And like, as I'm like a CBAP certified 2 years ago, so I would call it recently. So I would have joined this kind of study group before my preparation for the exam. Because this, I believe that first of all, business analysis for me is just a passion. So I like what I do. I enjoy that. So that's how I believe that you should like have these beliefs, you know?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
So yeah, I would call this study group kind of like breaking the ice with the newbie, having your first, you know, date with the BABOK, which everyone calls it complicated. So we are going just to open for you the doors to understand. Here is this room, here is that room, here is this door, this is the cupboard. So later on, you can navigate by yourself through the book. The
Yeah.
book has like not I wouldn't say like a complex structure, but I would join you, Stefan, when you say like you cannot learn by heart, but you have to understand and combine that with your experience. Because if you judge any question that's going to be asked in the exam based on your experience, it won't work. And if you judge it only by the book, also it won't work. Maybe I'm speaking about CBAP, because CBAP, as you said, like scenario based, and it was like A4, two pages, A4 for the scenario. So you have even to keep like along with the story that they are telling you. So I believe the approach here is like amazing, and also as Robin said about this group, how you like compose the groups. It's like amazing, like having this kind of diversity of seniority levels, so everyone can understand and leverage others' experience. Even I learned it sometime from juniors.
Yeah.
They come out with technique or an idea out of the books, not out of the book, but out of the books, out of the business analysis. Something that I didn't think about, you know, as a senior. But they said like, maybe we can do it this way. Oh, it works. So it's really fantastic like way. So really good luck, guys. And wish us all the best of luck also in Poland chapter. So yeah.
If you have questions, because they want to start something similar at the Polish chapter. So if you want to reach out, have some more questions, so don't hesitate.
Definitely.
I'm going to show my overview. I found it. I found
Sure.
it. But it's not finished yet. Huh? So bear with me. Huh?
I tried to do that, Stefan.
Yeah.
In Miro and Lucy chart.
So
Not
so,
easy, yeah.
No,
No.
but here you have knowledge areas per knowledge area. So here in between, so this is an output or an input. And these are the inputs that are not from knowledge areas. And then you see the relationships, and there you see that the relationships are milder than in the other drawing. The other drawing, which is here, it's like
Definitely.
yeah. So here you see the relationships between knowledge areas in different colors. It's not ideal, but I'll export it into a PDF, and it's not finished yet. But I'm getting there. I'm getting there. And so each time, all the inputs for one knowledge area, I put in the beginning with a color which refers to, if it's a gray, it comes from here. When it's turquoise, light turquoise, it comes from this one, and so on and so on. So I repeat the inputs and outputs in the beginning, and the inputs outputs in the middle. Yeah, you see them here. But for example, this output of that task is an input for this knowledge area. You see light green then. That's how I intended to do it. Almost there, almost there.
Magnificent. Because I can understand, I can relate how hard job you have done here.
Yeah.
To just like link these tasks together.
Yeah, and PowerPoint is not the ideal platform for that.
Yeah, I tried Miro, I tried Lucidchart, I tried Dry iOS, I tried a lot of stuff.
Also, Visio is not. So
yes.
and yeah, and anyway, and I don't have Visio on my Mac. And the ideal, and when I do with my Mac afterwards, I can do so many other things. So that's the reason I did use PowerPoint. Yeah. So I hope to have finished by.
Thank you for the presentation. I really have to go now, but I will get in touch later on.
Yes, and we will also send out to all the participants the registration for today, how you can register. And,
okay, great. Could you please put in the timetable too, and then the dates, and then from 9 till from 7 till.
Yeah,
and then,
that's all in there.
7 to 9:30.
That will be all in there. Yeah.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And good evening.
Yeah. Have a great evening. Bye.
Bye.
So I think we can come to
conclude
the session. I think.
Yeah.
We are
Indeed.
now 9 o'clock.
Yeah, and I still have to leave the office.
Yeah. Oh my God. So in Poland it's also 9 o'clock. Eh? You have the same. You
yes.
also.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So Anastasia, still interested?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay.
That's nice.
Okay.
Yeah. Of course, it will depend on the case. We will choose together the group.
Yeah.
But it's yeah.
Okay.
It'll work out fine. It'll work out fine. You'll see.